You are deep in the heart of Maine's vast wilderness. The forest is alive with the sounds of nature, the rustle of leaves underfoot, and the distant call of a loon echoing over a serene lake. The air is crisp, the sky a brilliant blue, but there's an unsettling feeling gnawing at the back of your mind. You can't shake the sense that you're not alone. As you tread carefully along the narrow, winding trail, the dense undergrowth seems to close in around you. The trees, ancient and towering, cast long shadows that dance with the flickering sunlight. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of the leaves sets your heart racing. You tell yourself it's just the wind, maybe a deer, but deep down, you know something is watching you. You quicken your pace, glancing over your shoulder, but all you see are shadows. The path ahead twists and turns, each bend revealing more of the dense, impenetrable forest. Suddenly, you hear it, the unmistakable sound of something heavy moving through the underbrush. You freeze, your breath catching in your throat. There it is again, closer this time. A low, guttural growl that sends a chill down your spine. Your mind races. The stories the old hunters tell of big cats flash through your thoughts. Feds may say they don't exist here, but in this moment, you can't help but wonder if they're wrong. You take a deep breath, forcing yourself to stay calm. You scan the trees, the underbrush, but see nothing. The silence is deafening. You start moving again, this time more deliberately, your eyes darting from side to side. Every muscle in your body is tense, ready to react. The forest, once a haven, now feels like a trap. Then out of the corner of your eye, you catch a glimpse of movement. A flash of tawny fur, the sleek, muscular form of a predator stalking its prey. Your heart pounds in your chest as the reality of the situation sinks in. You know you can't outrun a cougar. Not here, not with the terrain working against you. Your only hope is to stand your ground, to face the threat head on. You turn slowly, making yourself as large and intimidating as possible. Your eyes lock with the cougar's, its gaze piercing, predatory. It emerges from the shadows, muscles rippling under its coat, eyes glowing with a primal hunger. For what feels like an eternity, you and the cougar are locked in a deadly standoff. The air is thick with tension, every second stretching into an eternity. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the cougar turns and vanishes into the forest, leaving you trembling and breathless. The encounter is over, but the memory of those piercing eyes will haunt you long after you leave these woods. Welcome back to another episode of Acadia After Dark. I'm your host, Reverend Redbeard, and tonight we're embarking on a journey into the shadowy forests of Maine, seeking out a creature that once roamed these lands but is now thought to be extinct, lingering only in whispers and legends, the big cats of the Pine Tree State. Could these phantom felines really be prowling our woods, or are they just figments of our wild imaginations? Let's find out. Before we get into modern sightings, let's explore an old folk legend, the dingball. According to local lore, the dingball is a large, elusive cat that roams the Maine woods. Unlike typical cougars, the dingball is said to possess an enchanting song that lures unsuspecting victims. Once captivated, the creature uses its tail, which ends in a hairless ball resembling a medieval mace, to deliver a fatal blow. This chilling tale has been whispered among Maine natives for generations, adding a layer of mystery and terror to the already eerie woods. There are actually several mythical felines said to inhabit the Maine woods, and I plan to cover some of them in shorts, coming to the channel soon. Officially, the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife tells us that there are no known populations of cougars in our state. Yet for years, whispers of sightings have echoed through the dense forests and rolling hills. Eyewitness accounts abound, from hunters and hikers to retired biologists. Could so many credible sources all be mistaken? Consider the sighting reported by Colette Simmons, who swears she saw a black mountain lion in a Charleston cornfield. Colette, a seasoned hunter, described the creature as sleek and muscular, with piercing yellow eyes that locked onto hers for a fleeting, terrifying moment. She watched, frozen in disbelief, as the cat slunk back into the tall stalks, leaving her questioning what she had just witnessed. Since we mentioned a Colette already, I thought this other account was pretty interesting, which took place on Colette Road in Holden. According to the Bangor Daily News, on September 10th of 2020, Lori Nichols Kelly encountered a large mystery cat while walking back to her home after collecting her newspaper. While Lori didn't identify it as a cougar, she was positive it wasn't a bobcat or lynx. Later, in an interview, Lori had this to say. I'm staring at him and he's staring at me for a good 15 seconds before I said, I'd better do something. I decided I'd believe I was a bear and make myself big. So I did, and I said, hey, get out of here. The coat almost looked like a bulldog's fur. It was short fur and shiny. I couldn't take my eyes off the fur. I was just mesmerized by the fur. And it was a two-tone cat. I would say the head and the back were dark brown, and the rest of the body down was medium brown, like the color of a deer. Then there's the tale of Chris Boone, a retired biologist with decades of experience studying wildlife. One crisp autumn evening near West Grand Lake, Chris was out for a routine hike when he spotted something unusual through his binoculars. A large black cat, unlike anything he had seen before, was stalking through the underbrush. Chris, who had spent years debunking myths and identifying species, was certain this was no ordinary animal. His sighting, coupled with his expert knowledge, lent significant weight to the claims of these big cats roaming our woods. Another intriguing account comes from a visitor to the Allagash waterway. This individual, equipped with a 35mm camera, captured what he believed was a cougar crossing the waterway. The image, though later determined to be a fisher by biologists, sparked a renewed interest in the possibility of big cats in Maine. The visitor described the animal as moving with a grace and a stealth that sent shivers down his spine. Despite these sightings, wildlife experts remain skeptical. They point to the lack of physical evidence. No tracks, no scat, and no remains. They suggest that many sightings might be misidentifications of other animals, like bobcats or coyotes. After all, the last confirmed records of the eastern cougar in Maine date back to 1938. Officially, the eastern cougar was declared extinct in 2011. But what if these sightings aren't just a case of mistaken identity? Some argue that cougars from neighboring states or provinces could be dispersing into Maine. These big cats are known to have large territories, and as their populations grow, it's not impossible that a few may wander into our state. There are those who believe that admitting to the presence of cougars could cause public panic or negatively impact tourism. Imagine the headlines. Cougar spotted in popular hiking area. Could deter visitors, impacting local economies. Moreover, acknowledging cougars would require significant resources for management, research, and public education, resources that might not be readily available. So what do we make of these conflicting reports and official denials? The skeptics point to the absence of hard evidence and the possibility of misidentifications. Yet, the persistent sightings and credible eyewitnesses paint a different, more tantalizing picture. Could it be that these big cats are masters of stealth, eluding our efforts to confirm their presence? While I can't claim to know the answers in every case, but what I can give you are my own stories of encounters with large cats in Maine. Not on one, but two separate occasions. I'll start by telling you about the first sighting, which involved not just me, but an entire bus full of children. when I was in the 2nd grade. So one day in class, a friend of mine, who we'll call Donnie, told the entire class a story about his dad and how he had shot a mountain lion that morning when he got up for work. According to Donnie, the cat had run away. When his dad described it to the family, he was adamant that it wasn't a bobcat due to its size and long tail. Our teacher basically brushed the story aside, considering it either a case of Donnie misremembering the details, or simply the imagination of a young child running wild, and informed the class that there had been no large cats in Maine since the early 1900s. The kids didn't linger on this for long, and before the end of the class, most had completely forgotten about Donnie's story. That is until the following morning, when the school buses set out on their routes to pick up the younglings attending elementary school. I was one of the first kids picked up each morning, and would typically sit towards the front of the bus so I could see through the large front windows. As the bus made its journey across town, we stopped at an intersection positioned across from what at the time was a large field, which just so happened to be very near my friend Donnie's house. As the bus began to make the left-hand turn that would take us towards the school, the bus driver abruptly shouted, "Look at that!" while pointing at the right of the bus. I, along with most of the rest of the kids on the front half of the bus, immediately looked towards the field where, lo and behold, there stood an enormous, fully grown cougar. The bus driver slowed the bus almost to a stop as we watched it walk across the road and disappear into the tree line on the opposite side. When the bus arrived at the school sometime later, the students were absolutely electric with excitement about what they had seen, and no one was more surprised than our 2nd grade teacher, who after hearing the account from the bus driver was inclined to offer an apology to poor Donnie for misjudging him. My second encounter was much more recent and took place while I was on my way back from a gig one night. It was about 2:30 in the morning, and I had just passed Bangor heading home. It was winter, and the moon was bright, illuminating the hills on either side of the road. As I came over a hill, I noticed a dark shape moving down the embankment on my left, and I instinctively slowed down, assuming it was a deer. I've driven enough at night to know the dangers of having a deer dart in front of your vehicle at high speed, and I intended to let it cross the road to avoid an accident. As the shape came closer to the road, I realized it wasn't moving like a deer, and seemed to be lower to the ground. With confusion, I strained to see what it was approaching from just outside of my headlights. I slowed my vehicle to around 25 miles per hour as I went by the embankment, and I could see clearly in the moonlight a large cat that was about 30 feet off the side of the road, creeping through the snow. From that distance, and judging by the size, it was very easy to tell this was no house cat, nor was it a dog. As I passed the animal, I saw it pause on the hillside, looking towards the road as if it was deciding whether to cross. I considered turning around to see if I could catch another glimpse, but I decided against it. Now, if you've ever driven long distances at night, you know how after a while the lights and shadows can begin to play tricks on the eyes. I've driven a fair amount at night, and know how to identify most animals you would typically see in rural parts of Maine. I'm 100% certain that this was not a case of misidentification or road fatigue. But ultimately, like any story, the reality of it is up to you to decide. As we conclude this week's episode, remember, the truth often lies hidden in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. Keep your eyes open and your senses sharp, for you never know what might be lurking just beyond the tree line. And thank you for joining us on this journey into the unknown. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to stay updated on our latest explorations into the eerie and unexplained. And don't forget to share your own encounters or favorite legends in the comments below. Who knows? They might just make it into a future episode. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, keep your lanterns lit, and stay spooky.